Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 74 of the Anime Banter podcast with your hosts Turtle and Mike. Sean is out on assignment this week. Thank you for joining us today. Mike, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing pretty good. It's the first time that you and I have done a two-person podcast. Usually
That's
it's
true.
you and Sean, because I'm out on assignment.
Yes, so this time around, Sean is out on assignment, which makes me the only one with perfect attendance.
I was gonna say, how you feeling about that, Turtle?
It feels pretty good. I'm waiting for my award to arrive in the mail.
You're the linchpin that keeps us together.
Nice size trophy. It's perfect attendance on the bottom. Gold plaque, It'd be great. You and Sean can split the cost.
I was gonna say, how about we all go to Kura Sushi and your award can be you pay for everyone.
You know what? To go back to Kurasushi, I'll do it. It was that good. I'll do it. It
It
was
was
fun.
damn delicious.
It was delicious and it was fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, I'm in for that. I'll do it. So today, we got something a little bit different. We figured with Sean out on assignment, we were going to try to mix things up a little bit since it's just Mike and I this week. So we are trying what we're calling the Anime Banter's Rule of Three. So the Rule of Three, according to Google, is an unofficial fan term where you choose a show and you watch the first three episodes and decide should you continue to watch or move on to something else. So we thought let's make it an official Anime Banter term, and we're gonna do the Rule of Three. So I chose for this week's discussion for Mike to watch three episodes, the first three episodes of a little show known as Code Geass. I myself kind of stumbled on Code Geass, I believe. I was scrolling through Crunchyroll looking for something to watch. I think I saw it had pretty high marks. So I figured, let me give it a shot. I fell in love with the show very quickly. It's got giant robots. It's got big brain chess plays, literally and figuratively, because he plays chess. Uh, and I really like the characters. I like the character design, and just everything really spoke to me. The English voice actors are pretty amazing in this show. There's some incredible casting, which we'll talk about as we go. But I'm a big fan. And Mike, you have never watched it, and I wanted you to give it a shot.
I did see on Crunchyroll when I popped it up, it had like a subtitle to it with like Lelouch or I forget how they put it on Crunchyroll. So whenever
Uh,
I first
yeah.
pulled it up, I'm like, is this the right show? Because I was like, if you look, the banner says Code Geass Lelouch of the Rebellion.
Yes, yes.
But when you pull it up on, like, if you pull it up on your laptop or whatever, it just says Code Geass with that banner. But when you pull it up on Crunchyroll, I pulled it up on my PS5. I'm like, is this the right show? Is this like a sequel show that I don't know about? Is the original show not out there? So I was a little confused when I first pulled this show up on Crunchyroll.
For sure. Yes, I forgot that it did have that subtitle, which I pulled up to verify you are correct. Code Geass Lelouch of the Rebellion is the name of the show. It's an older one, but it's beloved, I believe, by a lot of people, myself included. It did have two full seasons. This was back in the day where like a season was, 24, 25, 26 episodes. So it's got two full seasons. Not too terribly long ago, it got a full length feature movie, which is a parallel alternate timeline continuation, something. I'm not 100% sure. Correct me in the comments, please. I don't know all the details on this. I just know I watched it and I enjoyed it. And it also has a like 6 episode spin-off show and a quote unquote season 3 now. I think it's on Hulu. I've not been able to watch that yet, but the first two seasons really really good.
I will say one of the first things I noticed when I pulled it up was that the show is set in the year 2017 and that the show originally aired back in 2006. So it feels like this might be funky timeline wise, where it's like, oh yeah, here's a show that came out in the mid 2000s. about a future timeline, and now here we are in 2014 looking back in time for a show set in that time frame.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't realize when the timeline was, so it's funny you bring that up. We're in 2024 watching a show that was set a few years back.
Like without knowing anything about it, I'm just like, oh, that's a weird time. Like I was wondering, it's like, okay, that's 11 years in the future when it first aired. Like, what type of futuristic visions do they have for this show? Not knowing anything about it going in, so it's like, all right, are they gonna like go super future proof? Are they gonna go like, all right, we see where the world is now. Let's try and guess where 10 years is gonna be. And then you start watching, and you're like, okay, not really even the same timeline that we're currently in.
I also find it kind of funny where like the show aired back in 2006 originally, and they set it like 11 years in the future, which is really not that far. And I just find that weird. Do you remember like back in the old days of like, the 90s growing up where like you'd play a video game that was set in the future and it's like the year 20XX. They're like
Or
as far out as you can imagine.
yep,
This is like 11 years later, which is not that far.
or it'd be like 50 years in the future. So it's like, okay, yeah, you get a little bit more liberties with what you can see happening in 50 years, but like 11 years in the future is just like an interesting one. It's a to not pick like a 5, a 10, like denominator of 5 seems weird. And then to only go 11 years in the future seems like an interesting choice.
I mean, they had my hopes up. They're like, "Hey, in 11 years, we're gonna have giant robots." I was like, "Really? That's awesome." We don't have that.
We did not get robots in 11 years.
We have no giant robots now. In 20, 25 years later, we still don't have giant robots.
Maybe in 11 years from now. Maybe when they
Maybe,
do Code Geass set in the year 2035.
maybe we might get giant robots. I'm not gonna count the Gundam from Japan. Yeah, it moves, but it's got to be hooked up to the rig. It can only like take a step and then step back. It is a giant robot, but it's not really a giant robot. You can't jump in it and pilot it and run wherever you want to. So no, we don't have giant robots yet. But in 11 years, we might.
We can only hope. I want a giant robot.
I've always wanted a giant robot since I saw the original Gundam show back in the day. I'm like, I want big robot. Why is this not a thing?
I mean, who doesn't want a giant robot?
Exactly.
I guess the issue would be how do you fuel it? Where do you store it?
Yeah, I mean, gas is expensive now. Can you imagine having to fill up a giant robot? How many like hundreds of gallons would you need?
You have to find a new fuel source, that's for sure.
Vegetable oil. It's going to be solar powered with and vegetable oil. All right. So let's get into this. I'm kind of winging this. We're doing something different, so we're going to see how this goes. But let's talk about Code Geass, what you thought of it. And let's start with episode 1. What are some points that you wanted to bring up about episode 1, Mike?
So the first thing I noticed was you could definitely tell that this show was older. The animation definitely had that quote unquote old feel to it. You could tell it was before like we really got into the high def era of animation and shows. It just had that old, not grimy feel like with animation from like the 90s and everything, but watching this compared to a show that came out within the last couple years, there's a night and day comparison of the animation.
Okay, I actually find that interesting because when I went back and I pulled up the episodes, I thought it looked really clean considering how old it is. Because I recall like watching stuff in the 90s. In fact, I'm doing a rewatch of Gundam Wing right now, and I'm watching it on Blu-ray, and you can really see the imperfections in the cells and everything as they animate it. Which, I mean, that was a normal thing. Technology has improved quite a bit since then, but you can see all the imperfections in like the colors and everything, which I mean I find just fine. That doesn't bother me in any way. But I didn't really pick up on that kind of stuff watching this show because I think we they moved past that at least. So I think there was more maybe computer involvement, but it's still hand drawn. It still definitely has like an older feel to it. But it looked very clean to me.
I think part of the reason why I notice it is, I mean, you figure most of my anime that I've watched outside DBZ is they're more modern.
That's fair. That's
So
very
like
true.
to go back to a show 18 years ago, it's much more noticeable for my eye where it's like, "Oh, yeah, I forgot what shows looked like back then." It's like going back and watching a movie from like the 80s.
Right. And you can see like the film grain and it's 4:3 aspect ratio. It just has a different kind of vibe to it.
I don't know. I didn't really catch on the ratio for the show if it was original ratio, if Crunchyroll stretched it, or what. I really wasn't paying attention to that aspect of it.
I
'Cause
think it's widescreen.
okay, I think
I
you're right.
I don't think they stretched it. I'm
Because I
not
know
100% sure, but
I know with like The Simpsons on Disney Plus, they stretch it so you lose a lot of the old visual gags from the old episodes.
yeah, and it just doesn't look right. That's like when Dragon Ball Z, I I only own I own Kai on Blu-ray, which is a little different, but I have the orange box sets, and they stretch those into widescreen, and you lose some of the top and bottom of the picture, and it just doesn't have the same oomph for some of the shots for that show. So I'm pretty sure Code Geass is a widescreen format. I don't believe it was stretched, which is good. I mean, I'm fine with the 4:3 if that's what it was made in. Just give it to me like that, please. Don't distort the picture to try to make it fill up the screen.
One thing that I did find super interesting with this timeline is that America is still part of the British Empire in this show. When they were like talking about, oh yeah, the Empire Britannia invaded Japan and they renamed Japan 11. And when they show the map, it's like, oh, America is still part of the British Empire.
Yeah, they just I don't know. They took over everything. I don't know if America was the US at one point and Britain took it over, or if it just always was the Britannian Empire. So I also found that kind of interesting when I watched that for the first time.
It also makes me wonder, like, what other timeline differences are there? It's like, did they have world wars? Did they have the nuclear bomb go off? Or, like, as we see with the mechs, are they more technologically advanced, even back in, like, the 40s, 30s, 20s, etc.?
Yeah. I mean, it's because right at the opening, they hit you with, the Britannian Empire takes over Japan, and it looks like Japan only has tanks. So, like, the mechs came from the Britannian Empire and just totally crushed Japan. They were not ready for giant robots, which is actually really funny because if anyone were to make giant robots, I figured it would be Japan, not only for, the history of the anime and everything, but their technology. They're like ahead of the curve. So I'm like, they would be the ones to make it. What do you mean they got conquered by giant robots?
I was just thinking the same thing. It's like every day, it's like, oh yeah, Japan is so technologically more advanced than everyone else, and then here in this show, they're the dumb nation when it comes to technology, and the Brits are the ones that are technologically advanced.
Yeah, they beat Japan to giant robots. I'm not buying it. If anyone's gonna do it, it's gonna be Japan first.
I thought they were super cool looking, very unique, and that like you think, oh Max, you think of these big robots, and it's like these Max, these nightmares, they're really not that big. Like they almost remind me of like Transformers. If you took a transformer, a small car transformer, and turned it into like the transformed body, like they're very small like that. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, especially like if you're comparing it to something like, the Gundam series, usually the Gundams are much larger than what it looks like the Nightmares would be, where they're maybe like three quarters to maybe half the size of what a Gundam is. They're a smaller scale. They're a little bit sleeker, and it looks like they just skate around on rollerblades the whole time, which is kind of cool.
I did like how they were like skating around on rollerblades.
They have feet, and then they have like the wheels that come down in the back, and I'm like, oh, they're just like skating. Okay, that's different. I like it. So after we get our introduction, we get some opening credits, and if you don't mind, I'll cover this.
Go for it.
This has kind of been my shtick, so we'll stick with it here. The opening theme for at least the first opening theme for season one is called "Colors," and it's by the band Flow. This band is well known for having several of their songs used throughout all different kinds of animes as opening and closing themes. They've had songs used for Naruto as well as Shippuden, Iruka 7, and they even covered Chala Head Chala from Dragon Ball Z Battle of Gods. They also did the second opening for the Code Geass Season 2. I like this song. It's a little too boy band for me, but it's still very upbeat and it's a lot of fun to listen to, and it's a classic. I would give this song 4 stars out of 5.
The one thing I really liked after the opening credits was how the episode title screen said stage 1. And I really hope that that continues because it has that video game feel to it. It's like you're playing a side scrolling beating 'em up game. It's like stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. So I thought that was a really cool way to title the episodes.
Spoiler alert, it does continue.
Huzzah!
I feel like this was a thing back in like the 2000s. Instead of just calling everything episode whatever, they all these shows tried to find a different, subtitle to put the episodes under. Instead of calling it episode 1, they called it stage 1, chapter 1. They tried to do something different to not just call it episode. So I also really enjoy that. Especially with the giant robots, it does kind of give it a little video game vibe to it.
So I have to ask when they were showing the terrorist attack on the news, did they take inspiration from 9/11? Because it sure felt similar to the 9/11 attack.
That's very possible, honestly. I mean, like that was a huge tragedy that shook the whole world. So it's very possible that they took some inspiration from that. I know Japan has had earthquakes and other disasters as well. So maybe it was sort of like an amalgamation of stuff that we've experienced, stuff that have experienced. So, and a lot of it's all like time based, when the show was or when the manga was being written, what was going on, across the world. A lot of times they'll pull inspiration from that. So it's very possible they took something from the 9/11 attacks.
This kid that we learn is the main character, Lelouch. To me, he sure looks like he should be a character in Yu-Gi-Oh. He had some he had some Kaiba vibes for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
And then like when he sat down to play chess, I was just waiting for him to say, "Shut up and duel me."
That would have been funny.
It's just like that was immediately where my mind went to when I saw this kid for the first time. I'm like, "Oh, this is a Yu-Gi-Oh character."
I really like these character designs. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like the lines are real sharp when they design these characters with like the hair, the eyes, facial features. Everything just looks really sharp to me the way that they draw these characters. They really stick out.
I think that's why it has that Yu-Gi-Oh feel to me because so many of those Yu-Gi-Oh characters have that same look and feel to them.
Absolutely. And this show in particular, very large eyes, which gives you a lot of, expression you can do with, the eyes or the window to the soul.
I did
So,
notice that how big
I
the
mean,
eyes were.
that is an anime trope having big eyes, but even like this show for anime has really big eyes.
They're like, let's make their eyes big, but turn it up to 11.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like their faces aren't that large compared to the eyes. The eyes take up a very large portion of the face.
One thing to note about Lelouch is that he's voiced by Johnny Youngbosh.
I love
And,
Johnny Youngbosh. He's the best.
and to promote ourselves, everyone should go back and listen to our Trigun Stampede episodes, where Johnny
Yeah.
Youngbosh voices Vash.
He also voices him in the original 90s show, so watch Stampede, follow our episodes, watch the original show and get ready for Stampede season 2 because it's happening.
I hope it happens sooner rather than later.
I would definitely like to watch it. I'm curious to see where it goes. But Johnny Young Bosch is a living legend for anime, video games, incredible voice actor. I have nothing but praise for this man. He's amazing.
Speaking of Yu-Gi-Oh, the Prince also has some Yu-Gi-Oh vibes to him.
Yeah, he does.
Like just getting these two characters back to back, I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we're just on full on Yu-Gi-Oh here, aren't we?
I was ready for like both of them to like whip out that dual
The
disc
dual disc.
and start playing cards.
You activated my trap piece.
No!
Banished to the Shadow Realm.
Oh boy, that's taking me back.
Uh, I love how the sidekick to Lelouch is so concerned with getting to school. He's like, "Come on, Lelouch, we gotta get to school. We don't have time for chess. We don't have time for this. We don't have time. We gotta get to school."
I mean, I don't know about any of you listeners, but like, I didn't have a motorcycle when I was in high school or middle school. I mean, what? How old are these kids? I don't even know. Is that high school?
I mean, Lelouch's sister's in middle school, so I would assume it's high school.
Yes, you're correct. I forgot about that. So yeah, they're in high school. So you got a motorcycle in high school? I didn't have that.
I had a piece of shit car.
I didn't have any car. I didn't get one until I was like, ready for college.
I had an old car that paint was chipping, rust was starting to come through.
Mm,
Got me from
classic.
point A to point B, but I had it all through college, but it didn't last much longer after college.
Yeah. My first car, my grandfather gifted it to me when he stopped driving. He gave it to me. It was a 1995 Ford Taurus. I had this car for a long time. It did well for me. But this is how old this thing was. It did not even have a tape deck. It was just a radio.
Oh,
Me being a music aficionado that I am, I kind of struggled with just a radio, but it was a good car.
I will say, I hope we get more nightmare fights. And the pilots, like the main pilots, just keep adding to the Yu Gi Oh vibe. It's like, oh man, they're going to start dueling in their nightmares, aren't they?
Oh yeah, the nightmares are gonna whip out the dual disc.
It's time to.
You get banished to the nightmare realm.
No!
I mean, without giving spoilers away, because I hate spoilers, there are more nightmare fights. This is a major part of the show, so you will see more of those when you continue watching. If you continue watching, we'll find that out later.
I really liked the look of the soldiers with like the masks that they had that like gave them like almost had a HUD to them when they looked out.
Yes,
I thought that was a nice future touch for the technology.
yeah, they have some pretty cool outfits. I think throughout this show, the school uniforms, the military uniforms. We'll see some other individuals coming up here with different uniforms. So I think along with the character design, the clothing design is pretty good throughout.
When we met Lelouch's old friend in the sewers, my first thought went to, okay, is this going to turn into a show where it's friends turn to rivals, back to rivals, back to like, are they just gonna keep flip flopping their relationship status?
Next, I don't want to give spoilers away, but that's a nice question you asked.
Turtle pleads the fifth,
Exactly, I plead the fifth.
just adding another anime trope.
They have to come from somewhere, right?
I mean, speaking of tropes, they do the shimmering lady trope,
Ah,
which
yes,
which sure is an interesting look for poison gas.
it sure is. Hey, that gas looks like a lady.
It's a lady. Oh, 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 it's a shimmering lady.
I like that. We should record that.
And then shimmering lady shows up, and then I guess this show isn't going to be friends turn to rivals, back to friends, back to rivals because rip to the childhood friend. We barely knew
Oops,
ye,
he got shot.
right? Point blank in the side.
It's nice to know your, commanding officers are looking out for you.
Yeah, it's like, oh, guess what? You're dead. Thanks for serving the Empire.
It's definitely a great way to show the disconnect between the people born in the Britannian Empire versus the people that they've conquered that they just listed as a number. Like, "Oh, you're an 11. You're not even human."
It's like
Wow.
filthy 11s.
Yeah. It's like, wow, that's absolutely brutal. I can't wrap my head around, like, realistically treating somebody like that.
I was gonna say, just in case we weren't sure who the villains were in this show, here's the British Empire to going off killing everyone.
Right? It's like,
It's
"Oh,
like,
I get you work for us, but you weren't born in our empire, so I'm just gonna shoot you in the back now."
and then it's like, oh, these civilians in the streets, yeah, they're dead too because they're 11s.
Yeah, they don't matter. Psh,
Just kill them all.
it's pretty brutal.
I love how Lelouch and Shimmering Lady are hiding, and the ill-timed phone call trope hits to ruin their hiding spot.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how many other shows or things that I've seen that in, but I kinda chuckled at that because I mean, I've never really been in that scenario personally, but I just think that's kinda funny, like, in the years that we are addicted to our cell phones, trying to, like, hide and having the cell phone give you away is just funny to me.
It's also hilarious because who has a ringer on for cell phones?
Me, typically.
I'm a vibrate guy.
So I don't I'm up and running around all day, so, like, I will never feel it go off in my pocket. I have it make noise, so if I hear it, I'll remember to check it later. So my phone constantly goes off when I'm at work, and
And then
my
you'll not reply to any text messages.
yes, because then I get busy and I forgot that it went off, but at least I heard it. The vibrate, I won't know. That's my excuse. It's not a good one, but that's what I have.
I love how Shimmering Lady is like, here's the contract to sign. You'll live a life of solitude, but you have all this great power. Da 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 da. It's like, um, this contract does not sound very even.
No, they definitely kinda blow through that fairly quickly without any
Yeah,
sort of
I
explanation.
I was a little bummed by that. It's like, okay, if this is the whole point of the show, like, oh, you must protect me and da 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 da. And then it's like, oh wait, Shimmering Lady dies. It's like, um, but you just said he has to protect you. Like they just sort of glossed over that so quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, they kinda do. Um, I think they shed some more light on that subject down the road, but, yeah, for this beginning portion, they don't really get into that.
But the power she gives Lelouch is one hell of a power.
Oh, yes. Very OP. And it's a lot of fun watching the show and seeing how he uses it. Because I mean, that's part of the intrigue, I think, for this, where they show he is incredibly intelligent. He's beating people in chess when they say, like, "You're locked, there's nothing you can do," and he's like, "Huh, I'll have this guy beat in, like, 9 minutes, watch me." So, like, they do a good job of showing, like, his intelligence, and once he understands what this power is, watching what he does with it, as the viewer from afar is a blast.
I do wonder if he sort of becomes like the main character in Death Note, where like he has this great power, but then he starts to use it for evil.
That is a possibility.
Toro's like, I plead the fifth.
Yeah, I hate spoilers and I don't want to ruin it for you because I would love for you to go back and finish this, and it would be a fun, future episode to just talk about the show in general. Um, but yeah, there's a lot of twists and turns with this show, and some good things happen, some bad things happen. They kind of throw everything at you, and I love the show for watching everything, all the twists and turns and how everything falls into place. It's a fun ride.
You want to talk about those end credits?
Yeah, so we hit the end episode 1. The ending credits, The theme is called, hold on now, this is in Japanese, so I gotta try to not butcher this too terribly. UQ? UQO? UKOU? I'm butchering it, I'm sorry. Sei Shunka. It's I'm just gonna leave it at there. I apologize. I barely speak English, and you want me to speak Japanese. I can't do it. It is by the band Ali Project, ALI Project. For me, this song is it's just okay. I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's just kind of there. I think it does have some interesting vocal phrasing, at least for me. But I also don't speak Japanese, and I'm not familiar with a ton of their like music, so maybe it's not that unique. But I found it interesting. I'd give the song a 3 stars out of 5. It's fine. It's not bad. It's just not one of my favorites. On to episode 2, and as I mentioned, the stages have returned.
I was very excited for that.
So, what did you find interesting for episode 2, Mike?
First thing I found interesting was the fact that the nightmares stop Lelouch's power. He tries to use it on that one nightmare with the female pilot. They don't really do a great job in this show saying character names, so don't think it's because I don't remember the. I mean, some of these character names I don't remember, but some of them they're like, yes, it's this person. It's like, okay, but like, what is said person's name? They're like, that person. So it's the purple haired nightmare woman driver. Um, and he tries to use the power on her, and it doesn't work. And I'm like, oh, is this gonna start the ship between the lady driver and Lelouch?
Uh,
Narrator, it does not,
no, it does not.
because she gets out of the mech and he uses the power on her.
Indeed.
So
Yeah.
we
Uh,
are not getting that ship yet.
we're not getting that ship, at least not yet. Yeah, so that tells us the viewer he has to make direct eye contact. Okay, that's one limitation, which yeah, I mean with this kind of ridiculous power, you got to have some sort of limitations on it, right?
You would think. And I like how they sort of use this episode to like show how the power works and like, okay, yeah, you need to have eye contact. If it's behind a robot where you don't have direct eye contact, it's not going to work.
And I love the way that they like present it because we're figuring it out along with Lelouch, but we get to like get his inner monologue as he figures things out, and I just enjoy that.
Grant, who's to say if Lelouch looks through a camera, if it would work for anyone watching on TV?
Ooh, interesting.
I'm going to assume you're not going to spoil that either.
No, no, I hate spoilers. I'm not gonna say anything. I legit don't. It's been a long time since I've watched the entire show, so I don't recall of an instance where that may or may not be a thing. I legit don't remember. But if I did, I still wouldn't tell you because I don't want to ruin it.
It's fair.
That's that's one of those moments. Like if that's the thing, it's going to be a huge thing, and
Yeah.
I don't want to spoil it. But I don't remember.
I will ask, how in the hell did a pocket watch stop a point blank bullet being shot into Suzaku's side?
Yeah, I call BS on that too.
Like, either that needs to be the weakest gun ever, or that, because I mean, it wasn't like even the only thing that broke on the pocket watch was the glass.
Yeah, the
It,
actual like frame of the watch was just fine.
yeah, it's like that. It felt like a stretch. Like you could have said, "Oh, there was a book. There was some like something else in there besides just a pocket watch."
Yeah, I guess the Britannian Empire learned to make giant robots, but they suck at making guns. I don't know. They couldn't figure guns out.
That sort of took me out of it, honestly. Like it's
Yeah,
like I get it. We're in the future. We're in a future timeline, but it's like I don't think in any timeline a pocket watch is stopping a point blank bullet and only the glass shatters
but what if the watch was made out of like diamonds
or vibranium
or adamantium? These things could exist in this world. We don't know.
or all of the above.
Whoa. They take vibranium and adamantium and compress them into diamonds.
Bum bum bum. My mind is blown.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the one thing that, like, I just I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that.
Yeah, I was not a huge fan of that.
Clearly, they wanted to, like, keep him alive, but there
Yeah.
had to have been a better way to do it than my old pocket watch that was handed down from generation to generation saved me.
The power of love and family. This familiar heirloom saved my life.
I will always keep it with me.
One thing to note is Suzaku is voiced by Yuri Lowenthal, aka Spider Man in the new Spider Man games. He's done on plenty of other things, but that was the first thing I recognized that he's done on his IMDb.
This man is also a living legend. He has been in so much, so much. This dude is so, like, famous in, like, the voiceover community. Friggin', Tales of Vesperia named the main character Yuri Lowell. Like, it's a literal homage to this man. Like, this dude is awesome. I love Yuri Lowenthal. He's incredible.
I was gonna say, Turtle, I don't know if you've played these Spider Man games, but you totally should if you haven't.
I am sad to report I have not, but I do really want to because I've heard nothing but good things and they look incredible.
I highly recommend them, especially for your PS5. They play fantastic on there.
Yeah, because it's what, like 2.5 games now? There's one, the Miles Morales expansion, quote
Yep.
unquote sequel, and then
Yep.
two.
Yes.
And I saw the trailer for 2 and I was like, freaking drooling, like, I need this game, but I gotta play the other 2 first.
And they're not the longest of games either.
I
Even
thought
the
the
new
first one
one.
was pretty big.
I don't think it's super long.
Okay.
I know the Miles Morales game is only like 8 to 10 hours, I want to say.
I
So
was gonna say, I heard that that was shorter.
the first one, the game of the year, which has all the DLC, main story 18 hours,
Okay.
completionist is 44 and a half hours.
Oh, that's not too bad, though.
And then Spider-Man 2 main story 17, completionist 28 hours. And
Okay.
these games make it so easy to get the platinums. Like
Nice.
even the collectibles that you're hunting, they're all marked on the map, so like it's very easy to just collect everything. You don't have to go on like a super wide hunt for them.
Okay. I'm not much of, like, a completionist, but if it's, something that's easily doable and it's not way out of the way, I don't mind trying to grab what I can when I play it, so yeah, I definitely do wanna play this game because 'cause I've heard nothing but great things.
So we see the one nightmare pilot eject from their nightmare, and it had me wondering if like okay, they're ejected from that seat. Can a seat be transferred from nightmare to nightmare? So like the chick in the red nightmare, can she put her seat in this nightmare now?
A very good question that I don't have an answer to. Um, I don't know if that ever comes up during the show in any way, and I'm also very curious now. Is that something that's universal, that whole pod, or is it unique from Nightmare, like, model from model to model? Are they different? So if you have the same model, you can swap no issues, but can you get it to, like, can you move that to an upgraded model, a newer model, or is that, like, all proprietary software like Apple does?
I really love how Lelouch was playing up the king role and like holding the king piece while he was like calling orders out. But I did not have this show being a chess show on my bingo card.
Oh, yeah. No, there's some big chess plays and references, throughout this entire show. He is very much, views himself, like, as the king in chess, and there's a lot of, chess references, which I'm not good at chess, but I enjoy chess. And, I really like that. Just like, he's thinking 12 steps ahead and, just taking charge of the battlefield that way. So that was fun. That's always fun to watch.
I'm terrible at chess and I barely know the rules of chess. So I might be losing some stuff in translation just not having the chess know with like knowledge for this show.
Yeah. I don't think it's like that in depth, but they definitely have all kinds of references where like he's referring to different characters as chessboard pieces. So there are some references, but he's very big into chess, and that carries over throughout the course of the show.
Hell, even when they're like looking at maps to attack, like the map even looks like a chessboard.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. I like how they do that.
And as I said earlier, what are the odds Lelouch becomes a villain in this show?
Next point. I'm pleading the fifth. I feel like I'm going to be doing that a lot.
Yeah. I will say when we meet the Lancelot nightmare, it being in all white definitely sends the I'm the hero vibes out. And the Lancelot mech also looks very much like a Gundam in my opinion.
Yes, and I totally see that because typically all of the Gundams, traditionally, like your main Gundams, are all based with white and have accenting colors. So to see the Lancelot, which is mostly white, definitely has a lot of Gundam. I assume influence because the Gundam franchise has been a huge influence to a lot of people, and myself included. I'm a big fan. But yeah, I totally get that.
I got a good laugh at Lancelot wanting to save Lelouch and the shiny woman, and then he doesn't realize he's actually attacking Lelouch again. It's like, all right, we're 2 episodes in, and Lelouch and Lancelot, um, Suzaku has attacked his friend twice now without realizing it was his friend.
I'm sure that won't ever happen again.
No, it's like, all right, it just becomes a counter of like, okay, how many times are these two going to fight each other without realizing they're fighting each other?
It's been a while since I've watched this show, and I will not give spoilers, but don't make that a drinking game. That's my best advice.
And when the prince like calls to ceasefire, I was very surprised Lelouch didn't have to use the power on him. It's like that just felt very weird
Yeah. I don't know if that's gonna. I don't. Yeah, I don't think he does. He uses something else, which we'll talk about in the next episode when we get there in just a few minutes. He uses something else.
because like in the next episode we see him use the power on him otherwise and we learn more about the power. So it's like you can only use it once per person. So it's like, okay, he doesn't use the power on him, so how the hell like yeah, he holds a gun to him, but like it's a little surprising that that's enough to have the prince call off the attack and an immediate ceasefire.
I think the point that they were trying to make, I believe, is that the prince, along with some other members of the royal family, are more on the incompetent side, and they don't quite know what they're doing. And even if they are competent, they're not quite at the intelligence level that our boy Lelouch is. So he is able to outmaneuver the prince here.
I could see that. Some of these higher ups seem very dumb.
Yes, they in fact are dumb.
Will say I should not be surprised that Lelouch and the prince are brothers. Like it's just another. This show has a lot of anime tropes in it through 2 episodes.
Yeah, yeah. Again, this was came out in 2006, so I don't know how tropey it was back then. This maybe a lot of people kind of stole from this, but then again, 2006 wasn't that long ago, so this concept has existed before this show. That I'm aware of.
Looking back on a show 18 years that came out 18 years ago, it's like, okay, how much of these are tropes that are just being used relentless, like just insanely amounts in these last 18 years? Like, was this new back in the day, or was this always the case?
Right. That's a real good question that I don't really have answers for. Um, I don't think I didn't watch this back in the day when it first came out. I watched the show when it was had been fully released, and I wasn't like I guess I would say I wasn't as big into anime then as I am now. Um, but I don't really know, like, how many other shows copied this. What, other shows this copied from? I don't know. But that is a trope now that has been used many, many times. And that brings us to episode 3, our final episode. Let's get into this last one. What did you think, Mike?
I found it weird where Lelouch is like was telling the prince that the prince was the one who to make the call to have Lelouch's mother killed. It's like, huh? Like you both look about the same age. Like maybe the prince is a little bit older, but you appear to be the same age. And it's just like you're really saying that the prince had your mother killed when you were also very young. Like, huh?
Yeah, we're gonna get a little bit more information, I think, on this a little bit later in this episode, if I'm not mistaken.
It felt like a weird like a little head scratching to me. It's like you killed my mother, and then spoiler alert, we learn the prince did not kill his mother. It was
Yes,
the prince's siblings.
correct. And if I remember correctly, there are a lot of siblings.
I forget the amount they said, but like it was an insane amount of siblings.
It is a lot,
Like pretty much the emperor just goes around from town to town, making someone his wife of that town, and they just start popping out babies for this prince or the emperor.
yeah.
This dude,
I don't even know if I would say wife. He's just making kids, and he's like, "These kids, you're coming with me. Mums, go away. I don't care."
fair, fair. It's like, oh, look at my royal bloodline, which is totally not going to cause an issue down the road.
Right? Not a good dad. Not a good dad. Don't do that, people. Not a
Not
good
as
dad.
good. Not only that, but a transitional nightmare whenever dad dies and who takes over the power.
Right? I mean, I guess he would be dead, so he wouldn't care, but that messes everything else up. So why would you do that? Horrible ruler, horrible dad.
Emperor just likes to get his dick wet.
That's it. Emperor's New Groove.
I will say this episode had a very weird tone shift with Lelouch being in school for this episode.
Yeah, it definitely does. School is like a major part of his life. So, and I guess, being younger, I also found it really interesting watching a character juggle school with his extracurricular activities, I'll say.
Yeah, that is one way to put it.
Yeah. We haven't really gotten deep into the extracurricular activities just yet. But yeah, I mean, you got the school life where you're keeping up your school persona, and then you have the other things that will happen down the road of the show, and he's got to juggle these things. So it's fun to watch from the outside looking in. Be like, wow, what are you gonna do now, buddy?
Millie calling out Shirley's boobs and calling her a perfect 10 was very cringe and very weird. It was also weird to explain to my wife who walked in while this scene was going on what was happening.
Yeah, this is definitely an anime kind of trope. Um,
Something that did not age well in this show.
no, no, it doesn't. But there's plenty of other shows, even like today, that still do these kind of things. So it's Japanese culture is a little bit different from ours. We'll just say that.
It was an awkward conversation.
Yeah, it's it's anime. You just got to look at it that way and move on. It's just anime.
Yep. And they really played up that bee going after, I believe it was Shirley. It's like, I'm like, is this going to be like a robot bee or something? Is this going to be like the British Empire made robot bees to spy on 11s that are actually school children? Like, and it's like, oh no, it's just a bee.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same thing. I was like, was this some sort of like robot drone? And then she like just crushes it, and I'm like, oh no, it was just a bee. Never
It's
mind.
like, weird scene, but okay. I felt like this episode was very weird.
There's definitely some weirdness in, retrospect now that I'm thinking about it and we're talking about it. There's some weirdness, but it's anime, it's fine.
Yeah, true. I do love the animation every time Lelouch uses the power of like you see the bird thing coming out of his eye, and then like you get that weird animation as the bird goes into the other person's eye and like in through their neural networks and everything.
I really love the animation, like, for this entire show. I think everything is done really well.
And then it was another thing as we learn with the power stops working after Lelouch uses it the first time on Colin. The redheaded nightmare chick that is pretending to be a student.
And that's when us, the viewer, get to find out you only got 1 shot per person, man.
One shot, one opportunity. Do you
That's
take
it.
it or do you let it slip?
That's it. Everybody gets 1. And, another great limitation for this OP ability.
Which it's like, okay, is it one per day? Is it one forever?
Um,
Do we get a cooldown?
um, I mean, I could spoil this one for you. I don't think it is game changing. It's you know what? That's your call. Do you want me to spoil this one thing?
Let it rip.
It's once forever. You get
Okay.
1 shot. So once you use it on somebody, you cannot use it again,
Make it worth a damn whenever you do use it.
which plays more into his chess fandom of his maneuvers. I can only use this once per person. I got to make it count.
We learned that shining poison gas lady wasn't the only girl that the military was experimenting on. And it has me wondering, like, okay, who are these girls? Like, do they breed them? Did they kidnap them from other areas in the empire, or like, are they? Do they all have the same power that gets passed to Lelouch? Does each girl have their own power? It's one of those things that is a loose thread that I'm very much interested in after these first 3 episodes.
And I want to say without spoilers that they do get into that. Um, I honestly couldn't tell you because it's been a long time, and I watched it a long time ago. But I will be going back to rewatch this because you started this for me, or I guess I started it for you, so I did it to myself. I have to watch the rest of this. Um, but I want to say that they do go into explanation of that throughout the show.
And as we see, and as we just talked about, Lelouch using the power once, I love how he used the power to get the edge on the exam from his professor, and the professor tells him everything, and then he asks him again. It's like, huh, fat chance I tell you. Why would I do that? And like, it's a good way to show, okay, us the viewer, yep, it's once per person. So once you ask your question, you're SOL otherwise.
Yep, you basically have one question, and then once that's answered, your power doesn't work anymore. So that was a great way, we kind of find that out previously, but to watch Lelouch find it out is really cool.
I love how Cullen and Lelouch are like starting to recognize each other in like sort of ways, like, oh, their voice sounds familiar. Oh, like they're saying things that they shouldn't be saying. And I love how Lelouch is like, okay, let's go to this room. No one will come to this room. And then literally everyone goes to that room.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. No one will find us in here. And you walk in, and then the light turns on, and literally everybody's there. You're like, oh, never mind.
Then we get the shower scene with Cullen and Lelouch. And it's like, uh oh, is this the beginning of the ship between these two?
Rot row. Maybe.
Ship, ship, ship.
Ship, ship, ship.
It's a weird way to start the ship though, seeing that they want to kill each other.
Well,
Well, at
you
least Colin wants to kill Lelouch.
every relationship has to start somewhere, right?
I guess. Talk about an interesting twist to end the episode with Suzaku being arrested for murdering the prince.
Yeah, how about that, huh?
Hell of a cliffhanger.
They need somebody to blame. Why not blame an 11?
And why not blame Lancelot? Granted, I guess anyone could be Lancelot because it's just a suit.
That's true. But I want to say that because it's a military suit, they knew that he was the pilot.
Yeah.
Although our our sketchy kind of doctor friend,
Who, I'm glad you brought him up. I was getting some like Joker vibes from sketchy doctor dude.
he's a little off, we'll say, and he's rather interesting. So we just may meet him again.
He was definitely interesting. And really, Suzaku should have told the prince to wear a pocket watch. It would have stopped the bullet.
I'm just gonna buy a pocket watch and just keep it with me now.
You're bulletproof if you have a pocket watch on you.
That's it.
The one lesson you learn from Code Geass: put a pocket watch over your heart, and you're bulletproof.
Good to go. So that was it. All 3 episodes of the anime banter 3 episode. What do we call this thing again?
The rule of three.
The rule of that's right. The rule of three. I forgot what we were doing. The anime banter rule of three has come to a close. So, Mike, I gotta ask you now the question we're all dying to have an answer for. Would you keep watching Code Geass?
I think eventually I would. I don't think it's going to be something that I go out and watch more episodes starting tomorrow with. But I think it would be a show I would eventually get back to. Looking at the IMDb page, it seems like the more highly rated episodes are mainly towards the end of season 2, with some of them being at the end of season 1. Episode 1 really piqued my interest, but episode 3 sort of felt like a slog to get through, with it being in the school setting, I think.
Okay,
So I'm not rolling it out. It's also not something that I'm gonna go out and just like binge starting tomorrow.
I got you. Well, I do want to say thank you first of all for doing this, doing this with me and giving the show a shot. I do want to say on Code Geass's behalf, what you saw on the IMDb, I would say is pretty true. The end of season one leaves some cliffhangers to be answered for season two, and season two is one hell of a roller coaster ride. It's really good. So I don't know if the first 3 episodes do the show quite justice because you got to start somewhere and build up. But I think these are great episodes, and the show, in my opinion, just gets better as you go on. So I definitely recommend it. I hope you do tune in to watch the rest of it at your leisure, and I hope you enjoy it because I'd love to. Sean has seen this, and he's pretty familiar with the show, I believe. So I'd love for you to finish it, seasons 1 and 2, and then maybe we could do some more general discussions on those seasons down the road. So I hope you do get to watch it. I hope you enjoy it. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in with us this week as we tried something different, the anime banter rule of three for Code Geass. And I hope you join us next week for episode 75 of the Anime Banter podcast. Sean is still out on assignment, so we will be bringing another Anime Banter rule of three. And there's a show that I get to pick again. What could it be, Mike? Are you prepared?
I am prepared. Hit me with it.
The next show that we will discuss our rule of three that Mike will be watching is That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime.
I am very excited for this. This is a show that you and a couple of our other friends have highly talked about for years now. So I'm very interested to watch this and see how it lives up and if it's something I would enjoy. But the real question, Turtle, with it being an isekai, it can't be better than Vending Machine, right?
um, Yes, it is way better than Vending Machine. Vending Machine was pretty bad. I really enjoy these isekai shows, including the bad ones. I watch a lot of subpar that I kind of laugh at and just go, okay, that's fine, whatever. Um, Vending Machine, I just really didn't care for. It didn't do much for me. But this show, Slime, is really good. It's one of my favorites. I am currently watching season 3 in English. I like the English dub. I'm sorry. I think the voice actors are good, but yeah, big fan of the show. So very excited for you to sink your teeth into the first 3 episodes of that time I got reincarnated as a slime. That title's too long.
Or as you like to call it, Turtle, just slime.
Just slime. Yeah, it's one word. It's all you need. Slime. Please give us a 5-star review on all platforms that allow reviews. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like the video, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. We'd love to chat. The Anime Banter podcast can be found on Facebook, X, Instagram, Threads, and YouTube. Thank you all for joining, and we'll talk to you next week.